This is a reclaimed stud-work wall that I'm installing in a property that I'm renting from a landlord. And the best part is, I don't need to ask their permission to do it, because this comes straight off the wall with no damage or fixings left behind. Here's how I did it. I actually didn't take any measurements of the length that I need.
Fantastic.
Nor do I remember how many I need.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Okay.
So after doing some hardcore guesstimating with lengths and quantities,
You've got a 3-seater sofa.
6 uprights, and a little bit of exploration around the reclamation yard. This is a pestle and mortar. Oh, wow. We loaded my car up with a bunch of reclaimed scaffold boards and joists of various lengths and transported them back to my workshop.
Far too happy with yourself for that.
Reclaimed timber is pretty minging to work with. It's splitty, it's splintery, and is very commonly twisted and distorted along its length. You also don't really know what condition it's truly in until after the dirt layer has been removed. So the first thing I'm going to do is sand all of the joists to get a better look at what's underneath. This will help me establish which parts of the board I want to use for the stud work and which parts are just better suited to becoming firewood. This was also a good opportunity to hunt for nails, screws and staples embedded in the timber that could damage my cutting blades. While sanding these, I'm being very careful not to remove too much material and make them look too clean, because by leaving some dirt behind, particularly in the bottom of dents and cuts along the boards, once finished, this will provide some beautiful contrast against the light timber and help highlight the character throughout these boards. So while I'm sanding away with this, let me just give you a closer look at what I'm actually going for here. This stud work can be broken down into 2 sections. The wall section, which in addition to looking really cool, is going to be a place for decorative objects and even some electrical devices thanks to this well-placed socket behind our sofa. And this will be going floor to ceiling with a scribe for the cornice at the top and a cutout for the skirting board at the bottom. In addition to the cutout for the skirting board, I'm also going to be cutting a very shallow angle on the bottom of the uprights to make them naturally fall back into the wall. This angle, in addition to the sofa holding it in place, will mitigate the risk of the stud work toppling forward. So now the only thing I really need to figure out is how to prevent racking from side to side. But that's going to be a future mats problem. The dining area will be a bit of a squeeze, but these shelves below the stud work are going to be wide enough for small books and more decorative objects, and will be sized to match the profile of the back of the sofa, which also means we have somewhere convenient to put drinks while we're sat in the corner of the sofa, and are too lazy to reach forward to the beautiful coffee table I made a few months back. So with everything sanded up, I'm going to begin making the lower shelves with some of these scaffold boards, using measurements I'd sourced with the helpful assistance of my brother's dog, who I was looking after at the time. Right, am I allowed to get another measurement? Go in here. Yeah, it's scary, take measure. I've done nothing. Ah, tits. Sorry, I forgot to film that. So as you can see, the construction of these shelves is very simple. It's just screwed together, followed by a quick round over on each corner with a router, followed by a bit of sanding just to blend everything together. As for the finish, I'm going for one layer of quick drying tung oil, as its amber colour should really help add some warmth to this timber, as well as add a bit of contrast to the dirty bits. Then as a protective layer on top of all of that, and to make it much softer to touch, I'm going to apply a layer of paste wax. Don't feel like you need to buff down the wax using rotary polishers like I am here. You can just buff it out by hand using a clean rag. You just need to watch out for splinters when you do so, especially when working with reclaimed wood. Moving on to the joists for the back wall. These currently sit at 8 inches wide, and my plan is to double my yield by ripping them down the length and get 2 4-inch widths out of each board. To ensure I get a dead straight line down the middle of these somewhat bendy joists, I'm going to use a laser line and then simply eyeball it through my table saw, followed by a quick pass on the planer to flatten everything out. Right, okay, so I've got to start attaching the noggins between each of these uprights now. And I've got to be quite careful when doing this, because although I've made the backs of them flat, there's no guarantee that this back is square to the edge, and also these edges still have very slight twists on them. Now, if I were to go ahead and just screw a noggin into the side of this, what could happen here is if this side is not square to the back, which it probably isn't, this noggin could be, I'm going to make this extreme, could be kilted off at an angle like that. That means if I then join this one to that side of it, this is also going to be matching that angle, and you can see the back of it is already going to be pulling away from the wall. And this could get worse and worse the more or the further along the wall I get. So what I'm going to need to do is basically find a way of angling these noggins to match this inside wall perfectly, and also account for any twists and stuff that might be happening. And now I come to think of it, also make sure that they're cut to exactly the same size, so that if there's any curves or anything along these, that size kind of works. This is going to be difficult. There's a lot going on here. So while I figure that out, I'm going to get each of these uprights in an order I like the look of, and get the skirting board scribes cut out. To start with, I'm going to cut a 2-degree angle on the bottom of each upright to create that natural lean into the wall that I mentioned earlier, then cut a notch out for the skirting board. Right, I have an idea. This bench, which I know to be dead flat, is going to represent my wall. That bit of OSB, clamped along the end, is going to represent the floor that these rest on. So as long as I reference these on the bench, assuming that's the wall, I can then put my noggins in between and actually almost scribe the angle that these uprights are sitting against the wall onto the noggin in order to get the perfect angle. That way I can be sure that once I assemble this all on site, my living room, I can be absolutely certain that these uprights and noggins once sat flat on this workbench, and so they should in theory sit flat on the wall at home, assuming that that wall is flat. I never actually checked that, but this will get us close enough. I think the rest will figure itself out. To get a consistent spacing between the uprights, I cut a couple of spacers for the top and bottom from some leftover OSB. Now you might think that cutting all of the noggins to the same size as these spacers is the way forward here, but it's not. The thing is, these uprights are slightly bowed along their length, and while I could almost certainly pull these straight with some equally sized noggins and some well-placed screws, by doing this, I also massively increase the risk of distorting the frame and make it curve away from the wall. This wouldn't really be an issue if I was fixing it in place with wall bolts, for example, because I could almost certainly pull it flat against the wall again. But because the method I'm going to be using to fix this frame doesn't have the same amount of grab as wall bolts, I want to minimise as much tension and distortion in the frame as possible and work around the shape of these uprights as they lay on this bench, rather than force them into being straight. So I think I found a method that works. I'll show you how I'm doing it on this last one. So first I'll measure the height or the width I want this noggin to be. So it's about 5mm shy of this, so 92 and 94. So then with this, 92 from the front and 94 from the front. Then just connect those up to give me a line. Then we'll just rip that off. That then goes back on here, up to the line it needs to go, and then literally just get the pencil and scribe it up the side. And then that will account for any angle on this upright. That'll then get cut on here. Alright, then I'll just scribe this angle onto it. And I'll just get that one cut as well. Okay, then we'll just check it. Looks like it matches it well. And now I'm happy with that final angle. It's just a case of removing enough material from that edge now so that this can touch the spacer at the top and bottom, and also this batten that I've already done. And we're basically just trying to trim material off this end until it fits. So with that sorted, I gave all of the components a quick sand with some 240 grit before applying a coat of tung oil to dry overnight. And in the meantime, I went home, got a pizza out the fridge, then threw it in the bin so I could use the leftover box to scribe the cornice. This is a method I frequently used for getting scribes in the van conversion, and it worked brilliantly. Speaking of which, many of you keep asking what happened with the van. Well, I basically ran out of time and money, and the conversion is on hold until I'm in a better place. So if you want to support the van fund in any way, consider purchasing from our store, mattisley.com/shop, or you can become a patron following the link in the description. Anyway, next I'm going to add a domino to join the noggins and the uprights together, and this will just make my life easier when it comes to assembly, as it will all slot together like Lego. But I'm going to leave them unglued to allow the assembly to slightly bend and follow the contours of the wall, and then reinforce it later. So with the main stud work complete, I'm now going to turn my attention to the part of the stud work that will sit on top of the shelves and divide the room in two. This isn't going to be fixed to the building structure in any way, and so I want the assembly itself to be as rigid as possible. So I'm going to go through all of the same processes as I did before, but this time glue it all together into one complete assembly. And so to fix this assembly into the shelves below, I'm going to be using threaded inserts. Now, fixing into end grain like this is normally frowned upon because screws can very easily be pulled out, and so I'm going to be using super glue to add strength to the surrounding wood fibres, as well as adhere the threaded insert itself into place. It's not going to be bulletproof, but it's more than enough for our needs. Next we've got this shorter upright to finish it all off, as well as a little notch to cut into the back of the shelf, which is where the final noggin in the wall section will be nested into. And then finally, I finished things up by cutting notches into the lower noggins for cable management. I can measure. Yes. Look at that. It was a bit of a weird, like, double architrave thingy going on there, but it's as close as it needs to be. We will take that. So I think I'm just going to dry assemble this for now. I don't actually have the things I'm going to use to attach these to the wall, so I'm just going to build it all and then probably just attach those later. That's hopeful. I like that. Now, all I've got to do is just measure the gap between the back bit and this little notch here, which will give me the size of my final batten. Cut 2 of them, and then that's what joins this to the bit that comes across here. I've been known to get my measurements wrong many a time, but today is not that day. So this is where we're currently at. I've just got to attach this thing now and we can basically do the final assembly. So I'm going to start thinking about attaching these to the wall now, and just to reiterate, I want this to be renter friendly. I don't want to be putting any fixings into the wall or anything. I want this to be able to be strong, so it obviously holds, but not permanent, so that I have to fix all the holes and stuff when we move out of this place. So what I'm going to be using is these thingies. These are just Velcro picture frame sticky things. These are the biggest ones that they do. They're really nice and strong. And, you know, just on the note of strength, these things, in terms of pull away strength, when you stick them on a wall, if you pull them off, they're not that strong. But these are designed to be strong when it comes to shearing forces, so sliding down, because obviously you're hanging pictures on them. But I'm going to be using them side to side like that. And it's still a shearing force, because these things, firstly, they're resting on the ground, so they can't fall downwards. They're naturally leaning into the wall anyway because of that shallow angle I cut on them. And so these are just literally to prevent that side-to-side racking that realistically isn't going to happen because it's behind a sofa. It's going to be pinched against the wall. This is going to also be held up and sort of keeping it all structurally sound. To be honest, these are pretty unneeded, but I'm going to do them anyway, just because, you know, it's always nice to have a bit of extra security. Building this reclaimed studwork wall marks a major milestone for us both, with making this house feel like a home. However, I always find it quite difficult to decorate places in a way that's curated instead of cluttered. And to be honest, my workshop office is a testament to this. Fortunately, the sponsor for this video, Huckberry, has made this so easy for me. Now, the majority of the products you'll find on Huckberry's website is based around high quality, seasonal clothing from in-house brands such as Flint & Tinder, for example. which focuses on hard-wearing American-inspired staples designed to do exactly what it says on the tin, as well as stocking countless third-party brands that we all know and love to ensure you'll always find something to suit your style. For me, however, it was their home goods section that really caught my eye. I like things, and being able to scroll through countless products and categories that were relevant to me, such as this beautiful set of knives or this decanter, created a constant supply of inspiration and direction for decorating this place. And let's not ignore the fact that Huckberry's website is always being updated with fresh new products and brands. So if you're looking for high quality clothing, or if you're looking for ways to make your home feel that little bit more homely, or even if you're into things like travel, EDC, or just general accessories, you'll find it all on huckberry.com, which is linked in the description below. Thank you very much to Huckberry for sponsoring this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.